council together against Yahweh and against his anointed, saying, let us break their shackles asunder and cast away their chain from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. Yahweh shall have them in derision.
Good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Hello. Okay. Maybe I just get to sit closer. All right. Maybe I'm just not allowed to. It's weird. I could swear I get closer than that sometimes. All right. Continuing the book of Psalms. Just going to pull this hair out of my eye. There you go. Psalm 39. Now, Psalm 39 opens with, to the chief musician, even to Jeduthun. And this is an example of what I spoke about many times in the past concerning the, I get turned down. It's just all off to me. Anyways, so it's this headphones. It's got to be these. There we go. Is that better for me? Oh, there we go. Now I'm monitoring. Okay, so Jeduthun, what's that mean? Oops, wrong thing. Of course, that sounds like a proper name. That's the first thing we're going to think is like, oh, that's a proper name. And very well, maybe. But sometimes there's other things in there. It usually has some sort of musical implication. Jeduthun. All right, hold on. There we go. Sorry, I forgot to bring you over to the crazy town. And where's the other thing? Okay, there we go. Jeduthun. Apparently, it's leader of a choir of the temple. But it says it's a proper name, so I don't know. They assume he was a Israelite and the leader of the choir at the temple. Okay, whatever. So that's not very helpful. And again, it's going to have, the word yada means laudatory, meaning like worthy of praise, praiseworthy. So it does sound, it almost, to me, it sounds like some sort of instruction on praiseworthy accompaniment. I don't know. Anyways, not terribly important. In fact, it belongs with the previous chapter. The way they divided up the postscripts and the prescripts was arbitrary. When it happened, nobody really understood. But if you look at things like Habakkuk 3, which is like a psalm out of place, the to the chief whoever, there's the chief singer, apparently goes at the end. The ascribing it to that. Usually it starts off a Psalm of David or something, a Psalm of Asaph, or there are titles. But this ascription here really belongs at the end. Or at least that's my opinion, based on what other people have said to me. It's not a particularly, I'd hate to think like on some website somewhere there was expose, Paul Strangini exposed, false teachings described. Paul Strangini falsely teaches that the ascribing portions of the Psalms belong with the Psalms previous to the ones they're found on. This is very disturbing. I don't think anyone makes a big deal about it. A lot of people ignore it because it's like you can't. I don't think I'm adding much except just I feel like uncomfortable just going along without acknowledging that that's a distinct possibility. And especially if you're going to read stuff into the titles, you ought to take heed about how they're assigned. I said I will take heed to my ways, that I sin not with my tongue. I will keep my mouth with a bridle while the wicked is before me. I don't think he means that exclusively, like just when the wicked are around, I'll watch my lips. Though I'll tell you what, there's no better time to, look at there's times when you gotta be more on guard. If I'm with my best friend, my wife, or someone else I trust, I may talk about things I wouldn't talk about to just an average person, a stranger, or even a person I know as an acquaintance. You know, and our tongues can get us into trouble, as James says. Or, I'm sorry, Jude. No, James. The tongue is a world of iniquity. It is set on fire of hell. The tongue can no man tame. Every other thing can be tamed with a bridle. This is wishful thinking here. Because later on in the scripture it says, that can't be done. Now, obviously that's just metaphorical, and it's not even meant to be taken literally. The point is, well, the reason it says that, like the tongue can no man tame, or it talks about here, like, hey, how about a bridle? There are other places in the scriptures, in the Psalms especially, where we've read, don't be, don't be stubborn like the horse or the mule that need a bridle and a bit to be controlled. And because when we think of big, strong, difficult to control animals, horses are up there. I mean, it's funny, we do control horses, but I mean, they're a lot stronger than we are. To outsmart them entirely and use machines and technology and bridles and bits to control them. So when we need control, we have nowhere to look except ourselves. I mean, there's no one else that can control us. My tongue is an unruly member, as James says, and it has a tendency to run away by itself. I mean, anyone who's ever, this Bible study is an example, because since I do it, what's the word? The word is expository, but impromptu is really what I'm talking about, meaning it's just all off the cuff. That means I'm talking as fast as I can think. I don't get to think ahead of time and plan my words out like if I was writing something. I have to actually just say things as they flow through my mind. That's why it becomes, it's hard to talk about complicated subjects at length without, well, we have some notes, but without some sort of talking point notes, like, okay, I want to say this, I don't even know what's coming next. I didn't even get a chance to read this ahead. I know I've read it before. It's not like unfamiliar to me. I'm going to be interested when I come across something in the scripture. I'm like, wow, I didn't remember that was there, or I didn't even dream that was there. There's nothing in the scriptures I've encountered in a long time that was unexpected. When I was young, I read through it and I made note of, like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that was in the Bible, and this, that, the other. And now it's like, there's nothing, as far as I know, that's going to make me, like, surprised. There might be verses I don't know, but they're going to say the same things the verses I do know say. Just like this, James says it. Did you know Psalm 39 said it? A little differently, though. I said I would take heed to my ways. God knows. How many times have I said I would take heed to my ways, It's not that I haven't, actually. I have. I'm sure we all have in some way or the other taken heed to our ways. But sometimes we want to take a little greater heed. Sometimes there's some greater righteousness we know we can obtain. It's not like I've been walking all my life like a criminal. It's like many of my ways have been brought into line with the Lord. It's the only reason I still have that prayer to make. The only reason I still got to think about things is because perfection is a very high bar. And so you're left with flawed individuals who have mistakes they make. And the tongue is a particular puzzle that you have to work on. Because sometimes we're used to just saying what we think. We think and it comes out of our mouths. We don't think about whether we should say it. We just think about the thing to say. I developed like a good safety as far as like when it comes to saying, or I try, a decent safety. When it comes to certain things, I've learned not to say the obvious thing. Meaning sometimes there's an obvious joke. Sometimes there's an obvious insult. And like fruit, they just sort of appear out of nowhere, meaning like you just see it. Well, here, look, I see an idea. I can make a comment here that would be funny and to be insulting to the person I'm making it to, but it'd be funny. And so therefore, I'm going to make it because I always try to say funny things because I want people to like me. That's, one way to get, to deal with shyness and, things, to say something humorous. This is something certainly I used when I was younger to try to handle social situations, and many people do, and it's not always wrong to use humor, by the way. But humor at someone else's expense is something obviously we don't want to do. We don't want to do humor that makes everyone laugh except for one person who's crying inside. That's not good. All right. I was done with silence. I held my peace, even from good, and my sorrow was stirred. My heart was hot within me. While I was musing, the fire burned. Then I spake with my tongue. O Lord, make me to know mine end, the measure of my days, what it is, that I may know how frail I am. So I want to see why he was holding his silence. Partly in this thing, the idea of putting a bridle on your tongue, similar to James, but he's not talking about how. Well, I mean, it is implied also that the tongue is like this thing that can get you into trouble, and he, for some reason, made a vow to be silent because it was he had to be careful, and I don't know exactly what. I mean, like when you're before the wicked, you better be careful what you say. Good or bad. You know what I mean? Because you can get into trouble either way. Good news, bad news. The bearer of the news is often the one who gets the blame. And I think what it says here is like, look, I was done with, I didn't say anything. I held my peace, even from good parts we're talking would probably do some good. And my sorrow was stirred because I had made this, he doesn't say bow, but he says, I said, which is, you're talking about controlling your tongue. And you say, I said I would keep my tongue. You don't need to compound it with like vows and stuff. You just already, if your tongue's the problem, just one of the first things you can work on is say things you mean. Speak the truth. Then adding a vow to this promise it would be not exactly ironic, but a bit overkill, I suppose. Like you're already admitting you're having trouble with your tongue. Don't lay a vow on it and make yourself more guilty. So that's this. I think I'm going to a place, to a situation where the urge to speak will be great, and I said I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to speak when I'm standing in front of the wicked. Or when the wicked are standing before me, I'm not sure which it is. I was silent. I was dumb with silence. I kept my silence. I held my peace, right? And then I felt sorrowful because maybe I could do some good with my words. This is regret. I regretted keeping silent. I said I would keep my silence, and then I regretted it. My heart was hot within me. When I was musing, the fire burned. I was musing there. I was thinking about what was going on in front of me, and the fire burned. Then I spake with my tongue. I said I wouldn't speak. I was dumb. I was told. I was so quiet. I was doing so good. And then the situation got where it's like, a lot of times, because here's the problem with the tongue. I know this. This is something that plagues me. So many times I try to take that thing out to do some good, and it doesn't do any good at all. Isn't that frustrating? You try to do stuff with your tongue, like talk to people, and it doesn't do any good. Or worse, you make things worse. I mean, I know plenty of times of when I've said something to people close to me, which was intended, in my mind, as a right good sentence to say, to probably either, sometimes it's something innocent like make them laugh, or maybe it's just a comment, or whatever. I don't know. I can't think of a specific, but everyone has said something they regret. Well, I don't mean said something regret like something negative. Sometimes you say something you think is good, and it didn't do any good. It just makes people angry. You'll say, I don't want to get well, I would actually like to get into an example, but I can't think of one. Like particularly, I can think of different people. I could list off people. Oh yeah, I've been talking with this person, and then I said something foolish, and talking with that person said something foolish and got them mad. But without the specifics, I don't know that that's a very interesting train of thought to follow. If I don't, but like, I'm sure everyone's experienced this if you have relationships. And if you don't, when you do, you will. Maybe someone's down, right? And you say something to try to cheer them up, right? But instead, it just backfires. They become more depressed. They become more unhappy. Because something about what you said, you didn't think about it, but to them, it just made it worse. Or you try to explain, and you also make it worse. There's a lot of ways we can use our tongue, and we end up making it worse. And the worst part is sometimes people are egging us on to speak. Now, once you're friends and family, you owe it to them to speak to them. You shouldn't be silent. You shouldn't. But you should be careful about your words. Use a bridle. You don't have to use a blinder, or a version of a mouth blinder. Obviously, blinders for eyes. But my point is like a total covering of the mouth. I mean, you don't have to use a gag. I guess that's what it's called. He says a bridle, not a gag. He wants to control his tongue. It's not necessarily a complete failure, but I think he's saying I couldn't control my tongue. I couldn't control it. The fire burned hot within me. I had to say it. You ever had to point out someone's hypocrisy and then regretted it? Like maybe I didn't need to point that out. Maybe they saw that. Or they did see that, but now I pointed it out and their anger is directed at me. There's a lot of ways you can get in trouble with your tongue. Doesn't mean you should never speak, though. You have to speak. You can't just keep silence. There's a time to keep silence and a time to speak. You'll be able to. It's good to be able to do both. Hey, I'm not saying silence doesn't have uses. Its uses. But and like I say, you shouldn't. Some people treat their loved ones with silence, like the silent treatment as a punishment. That's terrible. But when your enemies are trying to catch you in your words, like Jesus, they wanted to catch him in his words, so he didn't say a lot, because almost anything he said they would use against him. Almost anything. There's very little that he could say that they wouldn't use against him. There's things he said that they did use against him that wasn't even right. Like when he said, I'll destroy the temple and build it again in 3 days. It's not what he said, but whatever, they'll use it against him anyways. A lot of times you get your words used against you and they don't come back in recognizable form. And you say one thing and then they come back at you with something else, and that's what you said. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. I know what I said. No. Well, I know what I meant. No. I think it's funny because like some people will say like, well, you may have said that, but this is the way it sounded to me. Well, that's not what I meant. I certainly did not, by those words, intend to mean what you took. But so what? So what if I didn't mean it? I didn't shoot my words out properly. They didn't land exactly right until they took the wrong meaning. It's always it's something, like I said, when you're thinking, when the thoughts you're thinking are instantly coming out of your mouth, it's hard. And that's most situations in life. Very little do we ever sit there and talk to people and think, what should I say? And then say it. I mean, it happens, but I'm just saying it's not necessarily the normal course of events. Maybe for some people. And I don't think you should say everything you think necessarily, but what I'm saying is a lot of times when you're talking, that's all you're doing. You're just exposing your thoughts. And so I spoke. I didn't want to speak, and I spoke. That's what the first 3 verses say. I said I wasn't going to say anything, and I said something. And now I understand why it suddenly breaks here, because it's like, I said something. I sinned. I sinned. Because I didn't want to speak. It not even necessarily a rule. I just said I wouldn't, and I did. So I lied. Even if I lied to myself, I lied. Or what I said was a lie. It wasn't an intentional lie, but the words were not true. I think that's how he feels about it. I spoke in I did exactly what I didn't want to do. I passed up opportunities to say good, and I waited until I exploded. Because I couldn't keep the words in anymore. I'll tell you what, though, it's bad. Thinking before you speak is a good way to do things in life, especially when you're talking about relationship conversations. When you're talking to other people in a relationship, when you're about to say something, an idea, it'd be great to have a little check, a little like right before it goes out of your mouth. That there's some sort of little, little inspector that looks at the thought and considers the social appropriateness of what you're about to say. Lord, make me to know my end and the measure of my days, what it is, that I may know how frail I am. Behold, thou hast made my days as a handbreadth, and my age is as nothing before thee. Verily, every man at his best state is altogether vanity. Selah. And so that comes here. Now that's often taken as various meanings, Selah. I think it meant suspension or something like that. Some people think it means like a momentary pause in the music or a pause in the singing, where it is meant to be a break in thought and connecting, the one thought to the other. Different things I've heard said what Selah signifies. You can take it to me any or all those things. I wouldn't get too dogmatic about it, but it definitely means that like everything before it goes together and everything about to happen goes together, and then you look at the two in contrast to each other or comparison, whichever is appropriate. But notice it comes after he says, I spoke with my tongue, and then how long am I going to be alive, Lord? How long am I going to have to endure this? Every man is at his best state, altogether vanity. The best I can do is garbage. I didn't want to speak, and I spoke. I couldn't even control my tongue. I was supposed to stand there just saying nothing in front of the wicked. I don't owe him stuff to say. I don't need to talk in this situation. I'm going to just shut up. I'm not going to say a word. Then I spoke, and I just wanted to die. Because that was not what I was supposed to do. Man is absolutely worthless. As his thought afterwards. Afterwards, he's saying, man is so worthless. When is it going to be over? Lord, let me know. What's the measure? How many more days of this crap do I have to endure? How frail am I? How long am I going to last? My days are as a handbreadth, I remember my grandma used to read my palm. She said, we have a long lifeline. My wife will be glad to hear that. Because I have a family history of heart disease and stuff. But, my day is a hand. I mean, it's just a very insignificant thing. The breadth of a hand. The distance an ant could cross in a few moments. So many things, when you talk about things that are small, powerless, or insignificant, what do people say? What is our idiom? We say they would fit in the palm of your hand. My days are like something that fits in the palm of your hand. Just a tiny little thing. It's like my life. It's like a handbreadth. It takes a while to get that perspective. I long for that perspective. I want to imbibe is the word I was thinking of, meaning drink up. Imbibe is a archaic term that means to drink. But I really want to drink that up. I want to drink up the philosophy that my life is not very important or very long, and it's not much to endure, etc. Partly, and maybe that's a little fatalistic there, but I do think it's better than my life is so important. Everything I do is so critical. Every move is so significant. And for me personally, that's more of a problem because having too many situations where small decisions had big consequences. If that happens to you too often, I mean, where little screw-ups mean big problems, and it gets you a bit gun shy, if you know what I mean. Like, meaning, I find myself, I want to let go and just let go, because I think what comes from thinking that everything about your life is so much more important, so much bigger than it really is. The things that come of that are not particularly good for you. Because on some level, none of our lives are going to measure up to what we want. Just like the psalmist, I didn't want to talk and I talked. How much time is left? When am I going to die? I'm so frail. I'm so pathetic. You know what I mean? And, a lot of times I think that we read, a lot of times I know believers for whom failure and stuff is a really big deal. I mean, I consider it a big deal, and like, I don't want to fail, but it's like, fail at what? I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, it's like, I said I would keep my silence and I talked. Oh boy, big deal. It's like, there are worse things in life than violating some rule you put on yourself. Though it is good to, it's good to have your own rules for you. I mean, as far as meaning you rule because it's ruling your own house well, you have to have rules for yourself. Like, I don't do this, I don't do that. And it's good to be able to enforce those rules. Like you said, if I don't speak when I don't want to. That's a great rule. When I don't want to speak, I don't. A lot of times people, I can't help myself. I had to say something. I had to say something. You did. Well, I think not, actually. Nobody has to say anything. Sometimes we should keep our mouths shut. Thou hast made my days a handbreadth. Mine age is nothing before you. I'm 45, 6. And what is that to God? How many 45-year-olds has he washed? Watch go through this life. 45 is like, yeah, congratulations, you made it. All right, let's start. Get ready. It's going to start wrapping up. This is whatever you say. However long you live, you only get to adulthood, full adulthood once, I think. Once you get there, you live life as an adult. Most of your adult life up to that point has been actually childhood, the echoes of childhood, like working out as you become fully mature. Because I do think there's a big difference. And there's a reason, that adults have different opinions and stuff than children and young people. There's a reason young people think they know everything, and I know I don't. Man at his best state is altogether vanity. It usually means emptiness. Let's see if that's the right word. I'll bring you along. There it is, vanity. Oh. There it is. Is it going to be Aven? Like Bethaven? Let's find out. No, Habel. Vapor, breath. Again, something empty. His life is as a vapor. Emptiness or vanity, figuratively, something transitory or unsatisfactory, often used as an adverb. Yeah, it's often translated altogether. They are all together, da-da-da. So it's sometimes used as an adverb. Interesting. You know, it's interesting. It means emptiness, and it's used as an adverb and translated all together, which seems to me to be the opposite of emptiness. But you know, we say, like, that's totally wrong, or that's completely da-da-da. Maybe they use, I don't know. I can't imagine using empty in the same context, like, because it's the opposite somehow. That's emptily right. I guess you could have emptily right. I mean, they're right, but for empty reasons, I suppose. Whatever. Vanity is fine. Vapor, breath. Nothing of any consequence. Nothing of any gravity. That is man. Man is not of no consequence or gravity. His best state is vanity. Yeah, because at least then I could just be like, okay, hey, I'm not wicked. I'm just vanity. I'm just empty. My life is a vapor. It passes like the vapor on the wind. It's just gone. It's just there and gone. It's not that it isn't significant while I'm here, but it's just like in the big picture. It's funny to me. I was watching. I think it was Jordan Peterson a while back. But someone said like, well, you know, a million years from now, no one's going to care about all this. And he says all that shows is that someone can, you know, always find a perspective from which things become insignificant. There's, you know, obviously at some distance removed from a situation, it just doesn't matter anymore. If you get millions of years away, it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. And so the implication is maybe it doesn't matter right now. But obviously, in our lives, we don't act that way. Like the things that are happening now matter to us. They matter to us. It isn't to say that they actually matter. Just like, you know, I released my song the day before yesterday, but there's no, they got to approve it yet. I was going to talk about things that matter in regards to the song, but let's not. The events of our life seem to be important. They seem to matter. They do to us subjectively. Now, I could take some other subjective perspective and say, like, well, it wouldn't matter a million years from now. And from that subjective perspective, it doesn't. But what I think they miss is that when we talk about God, that makes things matter now and forever. Because with God is truly history. You know, history, events, meaning something is because of God. Because otherwise there is no, you know what I mean? Like, people write history. We don't even really know if the past that's been handed to us is really the past. I mean, I'm not questioning the ethics and sincerity of people who teach history or of who study archaeology or anthropology and all this stuff, right? I'm not slamming them or their work. I know many of them try to do very conscientious work to discover what human history is, you know, based on the testimony of the things they can dig up and the things they can, well, whether they dig them up out of the ground or dig them up out of old libraries or caves or whatever. They work on these things. They want to know. But there are some things that are always and forever hidden. And certainly many things in your life that are big deals right now, like to a person living a million years from now, it's not going to mean anything. They won't even remember you. If that was, you know, if there was a person living a million years from now. But because God exists, and God's perspective is actually, the way I describe it is his subjective perspective is actually the only truly objective perspective. He is the objective observer of the universe because he is the only truly objective thing that is. Like God objectively exists. Whereas the rest of the world, the more we study it, the more we're not sure. I mean, the closer you look at the particles that make up reality, the weirder it gets, the weirder it is, because like, the particle's not always there. It's like sometimes there, and it's sometimes there's a probability or whatever. All I'm saying is the universe is a strange place. And a lot of things don't matter to the universe, and they don't matter because they're just not significant. But they matter to you. And they matter to God. Because God has promised. It's not a threat. It's a promise to judge the world. That the men would answer for the things done in their bodies. The men would answer for their deeds done. So that means that renders deeds done not insignificant. Our lives may be altogether vanity on their own, right? But God means that, as Jesus said, every idle word will men give account thereof in judgment. Men are going to give account for their words. We can live out our lives and they're pretty insignificant, and we want to do right, but we don't, and then we want to comfort ourselves like, well, it doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter because God. We all have to answer to him. We're going to answer for the things done. It's a it's necessary. I mean, it's necessary if God expects us to respect him. You can't just let that stuff go on, like it was like all the evil done in the world was unchecked as it was being done, like Hitler, killing 6 million Jews, right? But nobody bothered. I mean, some people probably, Schindler and other people, people were trying to save people, right? It's not like there was nothing being done, okay, but what was done in response to that was quite possibly not sufficient to the thing. Well, actually, here's the thing. Some people may think there's more for Hitler to answer for his crimes, and that's certainly likely the case. I don't know. I haven't thought it through much. His death was not perhaps considered sufficient punishment for what he had brought, the misery he had brought on so many millions of other people. And that may be a good choice, but I'm a little bit wary of the argument to Hitler because it is it's a trope. People do it too often. Like say, well, what about Hitler? And it's like, and he becomes almost like a cartoon character. But there's just murders out there too, right? There's like little kids' bodies found in streams and rivers sometimes, and nobody knows how they got there, or there's bodies that never show up because people hide them and they've done awful things and it never gets found out. And the world is filled with terrible stories of murder and mayhem and secret evil done in secret places. And at the time, God just lets it go. Yeah, they die in the end, but the significance of them dying in the end, we all die in the end, so that's pretty even-handed. And maybe we all have it coming. But God has promised, like on a certain baseline objective perspective, none of us deserve to live forever. We all deserve to die. But like when you watch the wicked cut someone off in their early days and you say, that's just not, I don't know, is it unfair? Well, down at our level it is. Maybe not up at God's level. From his perspective, there's nothing unfair about the world. I mean, there's no, like, fair is such a strange concept because it's like, people want things to be fair, but they don't consider, like, fair is like right in the middle. On the other side is generous, and the other side is less than fair, right? And which side is God really erring on? He's erring on the side of generosity, quite frankly. He's generous to the wicked and to those who suffer, though we don't like to think so. But he's generous to all of us, since he owed all of us nothing. So giving us anything is generosity. Giving us life, whatever small life it is, whatever brief life it is. People decide the women abort their children, right? Does the child aborted, was God less fair with them? than he was with me, because my mother could have aborted me, as she was fond of reminding me. And because it was 1973, it was legal. I could have done it, because I guess that was the main barrier for legality. I always think when people rely on the law, or when they say it's legal, well, it depends on what it is. Because sometimes there's unjust laws. The one I always think is, you got to wear a seatbelt, because I've picked up a few seatbelt tickets. It's like, really, you're going to tell me I got to wear a seatbelt? So parochial. All right, so I don't know if parochial is the right word. I think the word I wanted was, or whatever. I should look at parochial and make sure I remember parochial school means like Catholic school, but what else does it mean? And what's it mean at basic? I think there's parent in there. I was talking about like taking a parental interest in you. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, so every man is at his best state ultimately. I could go on about that. Let's go on though. Surely every man walketh in a vain show. Surely they are disquieted in vain. He heaped up riches, and knoweth not who shall gather them. And now, Lord, what wait I for? My hope is in thee. Deliver me from all my transgressions, and make me not the reproach of the foolish. I was dumb. I opened not my mouth. That means dumb like deaf and dumb, not stupid. I was stupid. I should have said something. No, it means I was dumb. I opened not my mouth, because thou did it. Remove thy stroke away from me. I am consumed by the blow of thine hand. How many verses are in this psalm? 13. Okay. We're going to have to wrap it up. Let's just read the rest. And it's not very hard to follow. When thou with rebukes dost correct man for iniquity, thou makest his beauty to consume away like a moth. Surely every man is vanity. Selah. Okay, well, let's save the prayer for the end, because we got the second Selah. So the first Selah happens after man's best state is altogether vanity. The best we can do is we're empty. Like it says, it doesn't matter a million years from now. It only matters because God says it matters. It only matters because God's going to judge the world. Yes, it matters in the short term. I mean, objectively matter. I mean, matter in some grand scheme of things. Because how else are human beings going to think that anything they do matters at all? Man's life is a vain show. It's a vain show. I'm curious. I like the term vain show, but I kind of want to know what it means in Hebrew. I just want to know what the King James translators translate into vain show. Vain show. An image. What's disquieted mean? To become restless. Okay, in vain. Again, Hebel breath. And we looked at Jeduthun. We looked at, this is the same Hebel, right? Right. This one. An image. From an unused root meaning to shade, a phantom, figuratively an illusion, resemblance, hence a representative figure, especially an idol. Translated either image or vain show. Interesting. I like phantom. Or shade. I remember like when, Lord, what is man? That thou takest count of him, or the Son of Man, that thou visitest him. From man's days there is a shadow that passeth away. What is man? His days there is a shadow that passeth away. There's Psalm 144. Bow thy heavens, O Lord, and come down. Touch the mountains, and they shall smoke. Cast forth lightnings, and scatter them. Shoot forth thine arrows, and destroy them. Psalm 144. So every man walks in a vain show, in a shadow world, in a phantom world, a phantom image. Everyone walks in an idol. You know what I mean? But like I have, like, every man walks in this sort of, what it basically means is everybody's fake and phony. You know what I mean? And they're disquieted in vain. They get all worked up about nothing. They get all worked up about nothing. They're walking in this show, putting out an image of themselves, fake, right? And they get all upset for nothing. They're squirreling away riches in piles, and they know not who's gonna gather them, meaning out of the pile, meaning enjoy, who's gonna really they don't know, because you don't know. Oh no, I know it's for me, for my retirement, but you're dead before you retire. You really don't know who's gonna use that money. Squirrel it away, little squirrels. It's not to say you shouldn't. Like ants and grasshoppers, the story. The ants are all preparing for winter, and the grasshopper was just singing and fiddling away. And terrible times come, and the grasshopper is dead, and the ants are all huddled in their little den. But that's how they live. Now, obviously, human beings, ants are all one type. Ants do what ants do. Grasshoppers do what they do. It's their nature. They can't help it. We also have a nature, but human beings come in different varieties. And some are, it's not necessarily wise to live like a grasshopper, though sometimes you have to. And certainly the primary activity of life is not heaping up riches. All I mean is just preparing for the future, just to take no thought for your life, what you should eat, what you shall drink. I always take that a bit idiomatically or a bit of a hyperbole, meaning obviously he's not saying, he fed the 5,000. They said, what should we give them to drink? Or what should we give them to eat? We have no food out here in the wilderness. I told you not to take thought for what you're going to eat. Don't think about it. But we're hungry. What he means is the thought that people take, like when they're worried about the future. So they're constantly accounting for the future. Like I said, it's nothing wrong with preparing for future. It's just we become so future focused, we lose track of right now. And we don't live in the moment. And when we're living in the moment, we're living in a vain show. We're living in this fake moment. In the fake moment, we've chosen to show the outside world. We've given them our fake face. We're all upset about things that for no reason. What are they are disquieted and vain? Oh, same word. Vain is different. Sorry. He heapeth up riches and knoweth not who should gather. Okay, and now, Lord, what am I waiting for? I'm waiting for you. My hope is in you. Why? I wonder if that actually comes out, man, because it says it's on my desktop audio, and it sure is loud in my ear. I wish my computer would not do that. When it writes the disk, it comes out the audio. I don't know if that's actually hearable. But man, in my headphones, it was like, there it goes again. I gotta ask my wife if that even happens. There, remember? Did you hear maybe it's real quiet. It actually sounds more like nails on a chalkboard. It's the sound of a computer doing something, being turned into electronic impulses into my ears. What am I waiting for? My hope is in you. I'm waiting for you. The thing that I hope and wait for is you, O Lord. I'm not waiting for the future of when I've gathered all my resources, and I'm going to retire. I'll spend the rest of my days in ease. People do it all the time. I'm going to spill coffee on myself. Like the slob I truly am. I am a slob. there. Now it's there you go. What coffee? So, okay. Deliver me from all my transgressions, make thy reproach of foolish. I don't need to dwell. My hope is in you. I place my hope in you, the Lord. I haven't put my hope in uncertain riches. Deliver me from all my transgressions. Make me not the reproach of the foolish. You don't even got to be clever to make fun of me. You know what I mean? You don't even have to be clever. Come up with something witty. Just a fool's jest, a fool's mock, a fool's reproach. I don't think he's saying that particularly like that, but, the foolish have no right to mock. So make me not the object of their mocking. Deliver me from my transgressions. Deliver me from all my transgressions. That's I hope on you. I'm caught up in this world. My life, in some ways, is a vain show. I try to be genuine with people, certainly with the people that are close to me. But there are many aspects when you're just walking out in society. It's a vain show. Hi, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, at least for me it is, because it's not my personality. It's just how I cope with social situations in a certain way. Deliver me from all my transgressions, make me not the reproach of the foolish. Okay. My transgressions are the things that can destroy me. I've transgressed against God. I've transgressed against heaven. If I'm not going to find my portion with the wicked, God's going to have to deliver me. And thank God he sent his son, Jesus Christ, as by faith in him, we are delivered. But that's not to say that there is not so much to learn. Because being delivered, we want to be worthy of the kingdom we've been called to. We've been called to a kingdom. It's not just like, hey, accept salvation. It's like a ride on the bus. Just get on the bus and ride. That's salvation. It's not exactly like that. It is like that, and that you go where where the bus driver takes you, I suppose. Hey, Lord, sorry. I should mute it. Nothing like getting all your listeners yawning. I was dumb. I opened not my mouth because thou didst it. Because you did it. I'm not sure if he means you helped me keep silent. Or because I didn't want to speak against what God had done. Because that's the thing. And I don't know what David's circumstances were in this, exactly what this is referring to. Which incident of his life, if it's even recorded. But, you could be brought before the wicked for judgment, and it's not good, and you could speak up, or maybe you desperately want to speak up. You want to keep your mouth shut. I kept my mouth shut because of you, Lord, because you did it. Maybe because you put this guy in power over me. You put this wicked person in power over me, and I accepted it. So I kept my mouth shut, at least until I didn't. I kept it shut for you until I didn't. Remove thy stroke away from me. I am consumed by the blow of thy hand. Because I opened my mouth. He already said he opened his mouth. He says, I was dumb. I opened not my mouth because of you. But then I did open my mouth because of the wicked. That's the thing. It's hard sometimes to be obedient to God, who is so far away, when you have a man right in front of you that that you can sink your teeth into. I can make this guy pay. I can make him sorry. Or I can at least get, I can get justice right here and now by speaking up when I shouldn't. I don't know the precise nature of the situation. It doesn't matter. Because it's the conflict that matters. The conflict. God, it's not like this conflict between willingness to obey God and the desire to, call it whatever, and the impulse to do what seems right to man. There's a way that seems right to man, but the end thereof is destruction. And how often we go that way. But God has called us to go a different way, to obey him. Remove your stroke away from me. It references chastisement, like that, implying I was punished for for speaking when I should not have spoke. I was quiet because of you, and now I'm being punished. The reason remove from the stroke is because he's saying in the psalm, I spoke. And he says I didn't speak, but what he's saying about when he didn't speak, you know what I mean? It can be kind of hard to follow in a bit. I mean, if you understand the spirit in which it is said. I opened not my mouth because you did it. I could take this another way. I mean, I don't know. He said, my anger burned hot within me. And while I was thinking, the fire burned, and then I spake with my tongue. And I wasn't going to. And now, I had this other thought that he was, the stroke was the fact that he was brought before this person, or this person was brought before him, or what, for judgment. I'm not sure. Is this a reference to back when he was, living in the wilderness and sometimes had to ally himself with other kings than the king of Israel, when he had to go into the court of the Philistines and all that? When thou with rebukes dost correct man for iniquity, thou makest his beauty to consume away like a moth. Surely every man is vanity, Selah. When God rebukes, when he uses rebukes, he corrects man and corrects man for iniquity. That which, when he says consume away like a moth, I think the way moths consume things. The beauty is tarnished. If you've ever seen the damage done by moths to things, I mean, it's always it's moths, but it's actually their larva. But it's still a moth larva, so I mean it's not like wrong. It's not the moth, it's the larva. Yeah. They didn't have like the moth. They did have different words for larva though. I think they did. Whatever. When God corrects man, his beauty consumes away like a moth. And this reminds me of the verse 8. Oh no, verse 6. Every man walks in a vain show. They've got a vain show. Oh, my beauty. Look at my beautiful life, my beautiful person, me, I'm so beautiful. My beautiful wife, my beautiful children, my beautiful home, my beautiful car. Everything's beautiful. But then when God corrects man for iniquity, all that beauty becomes tarnished, consumed away. Maybe that's not very apparent. So it can be apparent, especially if the correction is public. All of a sudden we're exposed, and all that beauty, it just evaporates. So all of a sudden all that fakeness gets exposed. All that careful hiding of who we really are suddenly is brought out into the open. Surely every man is vanity. Because the man's beauty is just an outward expression of something that isn't real. Our beauty is like a flower passing away. It's beautiful for the moment it's blooming. But a lot of times, you just under the surface, you can see it's not so beautiful after all. Hear my prayer, O Lord, give ear unto my cry. Hold not thy peace at my tears, for I am a stranger with thee, and a sojourner as all my fathers were. Meaning, I identify with you. I consider myself like I'm a sojourner with you, meaning I'm in company with you, God. God, I'm a stranger here on this planet Earth. I don't belong here with the wicked. I really want to be someplace else with you. And I don't feel at home. I feel like I'm just passing through the life, because life itself is a passing thing. Instead of acting like I'm here forever, instead of acting like I just need to pile up riches, I am aware of the fact that I am a sojourner. I'm just here for a while. My days are as a shadow that passes away. My life is like a vapor that evaporates in the night. And I'm a stranger with you here. I don't belong in the world. The world doesn't seem to like me much, and I don't like the world. Just like my father, he's looking back at his fathers, Israel, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, strangers in strange lands. Or like you look at Hebrews, by faith they did all these things, never receiving the promises that they were laying claim to, but just seeing afar off the promise, seeing that there was something. That's the spirit of being a sojourner. It's like I'm on my way someplace else, to a city. Most people think heaven. I don't really like to use that term about like going to heaven and all that stuff, because I don't think that's the most accurate way to portray everything that surrounds the idea of final judgment and rewards and all that. I think that a lot of our understanding of the rewards of the wicked and the righteous are corrupted by tradition and also by wishful thinking and simply by lack of attention to all the details in the scripture, which give us a broader perspective on what those things might be or what they really are, because there's not just, they've selected a few scriptures that go along with certain prejudices, and if you focus on just scriptures that confirm your prejudices, you may come down with a very feel like you've got a very strong opinion about something that maybe you should have taken a little more thought to, but we're not going to get into that. Spare me that I may recover strength before I go hence and be no more. Wow. I'm saying, hey, spare me so I can get stronger, and then I can go out and die. I know that my life is not long. I know that my time here is not the best. I want my judgment to be with you. I'm a sojourner with you. When I move on, I want to move on with you. It's a plea for salvation, for life from death, obviously, also. And then spare me is a life request, like spare me in this life. Spare me live a little longer, so I can, in my vain existence, recover strength. Before I go back and do more vain things that will ultimately result in my death. It's kind of I guess you could look at it as a depressing psalm, but it's a sort of a realistic psalm. He knows his shortcomings. He knows his failings. He wants to do right. He's facing off against people who are truly wicked, knowing he's distinct from them, knowing about the vanity of the world, knowing about the transitory nature of human beauty and order. Beauty could just be thought of as order also, because a lot of times the word beauty literally means orderliness, a well-ordered thing. That's why a woman, she sets her hair in order to make it look nice. She's ordering it. Sometimes people do crazy hairstyles, but they're actually planned. It's because there are a lot of crazy hairstyles like that have no order, so to speak, but many of them don't look any good, so they wouldn't be used. You wouldn't purposely do that. Whatever, I'm just covering up. Sometimes I go too far trying to explain how there are exceptions. Anyways, spare me that I may recover strength before I go hence and be no more. Our lives pass away, there's vapor. And our hope, we got to put our hope in God, in obeying Him and trusting Him for our salvation. And also to know that, yes, you know what? Sometimes He will we can go through difficult circumstances, but it's not the end yet. I was saying to my wife the other day, when I die, it'll be the perfect moment for me to die. It's not going to be like, oh, it happened too soon. It won't have happened too soon. Maybe for me, maybe from my short-term perspective, but in the long-term perspective of God, objectively from the perspective of what's supposed to happen in the world, I will die at the precise moment I'm supposed to die. And that's all there is to it. That could be tomorrow, that could be next week, that could be 10 years, 20, 40 years from now. Or my wife would say 70 years from now. And then it'd be 116. But anyways, she just likes me to live a long life. But eventually, we're all going to go hence and be no more. Even 116 years is not very long in the sight of God. All right, so we'll continue conclude there. We'll continue with Psalm 40 tomorrow. Thanks for joining me in this study. Look forward to being back again with you tomorrow to continue in the book of Psalms. Psalms chapter 40, or the 40th Psalm.
Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, the rulers take counsel together against Yahweh and against his anointed.